So what's up, everybody? This is another round of W2 Capitalist series. I haven't really come up with a series name for it because this is really the first one that I've talked to, first group of guys I've talked to, and I'm honored to talk to these guys. Hold a special place in my heart, being the firemen that they are due to my dad's service in the fire department and whatnot. So today I'm joined by Mike Webb. Mike is I'm going to get this wrong, he's a lieutenant in Frederick County, Maryland, right?
Correct.
Also Ryan Kinyon, who's a captain in Red Bluff, California. So these guys are on opposite ends of the country, and their investing careers are also on opposite ends of the spectrum, to where Mike is a little bit more experienced, where Ryan just sold his first rental property and is looking to scale up. So I think today is going to be really awesome about talking to, this conversation is geared toward firemen, because and we were talking a little bit before I hit the record button about and this happens in my job too, where a lot of folks, they hear, hey, you're investing in real estate. They're very negative. They're like, man, I don't have the time. I don't have the money. Where are you finding this? Are you, in y'all's situation, are you taking the opportunity on runs to go driving for dollars? And you may be, I don't know, but I don't know if we need to get into that or not. But so anyway, I want to introduce these guys. I want to talk about how firemen can invest in real estate and still be successful in firemen. I think one of the things, and we'll get into this, is how y'all's schedule is different. I mean, I'm familiar with the 24 on, 48 off. Ryan, you got a little bit different schedule, so we'll talk about that a little bit. So Mike, we'll start with you. Just a couple of quick introductions. Time at the department, already talked about your rank as a lieutenant, but how you got started in your current focus.
Sure. Thanks for having me. Yeah, so I've been with the department 11 years. Started as a volunteer fireman before that. So it's just something I've always liked to do. And the way it kind of, the condensed version, I guess you will, of my story is my parents have always been entrepreneurial, own their own business 30 plus years, and have been a huge influence on me. So they kind of planted that seed early on. And when I graduated college, throughout college, I had my own car detailing business and worked as a bartender. So during the night, I'd basically feed my car detailing business during the day. So I kind of always had that entrepreneurial spirit. But once I graduated college, got I guess you could say, a desk job, and kind of always kept firefighting in the back of my mind. And I decided to apply, went ahead, ended up getting hired with a jurisdiction kind of in like the DC, Baltimore metro area, if you will, and started working. And I was working, much like Brian and I were just discussing, a lot of overtime. Every ounce of overtime I could get, I worked, because I love the job. And at a certain point, it's not a job to you. It's like pretty much who you are and what you do. So my wife and I had a son, and just for the heck of it, I was like, oh, I wonder how much a trip to Disney cost. So I did a quick little search on the internet, and I'm like, holy cow. Not my exact words, but close.
Right.
And I was like, so I took whatever the price was and divided it by whatever my hourly rate was at the time and figure out how many hours it was. And I was like, holy cow. So I'm getting ready to have this son, and, I want to do all these cool things, but, what's that? A champagne taste on a Miller Lite budget type saying. I was like, this isn't going to work. I want to spend time with this little one we're going to have running around, and I'm going to have to be working all these hours to do this cool stuff. There's got to be another way. So I kept looking at franchises and subways and Liberty Tax and all this stuff. And I kept coming back to real estate, because it's just, to me, like the most tried and true asset class in America. Think about anybody that's successful, they own some sort of real estate, even if it's not their primary business. So I really spent a lot of time just learning podcasts, audiobooks. Bigger Pockets was like my homepage on my computer practically.
Yeah.
And I know, Jay, you got started with your partner, I guess, through Bigger Pockets. Same thing happened to me. I met my current business partner, Bill, through Bigger Pockets, and it's worked out fantastic.
Yeah.
And
I can't say enough about Bigger Pockets. I'm almost to the point where I'm like, all right, the amount of people that I've sent Bigger Pockets way, I think I need to start getting some kickbacks.
I know. I
Because,
was
but
going to message Brandon and be like, hey,
yeah.
come on, I need a t-shirt or something, man.
But in all honesty, it is the way that I can pay them back for everything.
100% agree
From that.
Yeah. I buy all the books and planners just to kind of what him and Josh have done has paid dividends.
Yes.
So, so I'll wrap it up so we can get to Ryan. I didn't know how brief you wanted.
No, that's fine. I was just going to ask you, I like how when you started having your son, because that was, you started looking at, okay, I want to do this, I want to do this. It costs this amount of money. And you went through the process of dividing out how many hours or how many shifts I'm going to have to work to pay for that. And that was the fundamental shift that got me into being serious about investing, was when our first kid, started coming along. And matter of fact, the first true rental property that we bought in Pensacola, he was 3 weeks old. So it was, and now he's been to, I think like 10 closings since then. He's 4. So it's kind of fun to,
So you're planting that seed.
Yeah. Hopefully so. Yeah. So, I think that's awesome stuff. And you've taken your, investing one step further. You've got this blog going called, what is it? The Investing Fireman. Is that right?
Correct. Yep.
So, we'll talk more about that in a minute, but let's switch over to Ryan. Ryan, tell us your story, man. Where are you from? How many years you've been with the department? What's your current rank? And all that good stuff. And then the real estate, of course.
Well, I'm from Red Bluff, California. I've spent my whole life in Northern California. My dad did 33 years for the department. We worked for the state.
So you didn't disappoint your dad like I did mine, I guess.
Actually, it's probably quite the opposite. He, growing up, he said, encouraged me to go to college because he started when he was 17. And he just said, hey man, my biggest regret was I didn't go to school, and I wish I'd have done some other stuff. And so I went that route, but I started the job seasonally just to pay for school. And I just kind of got hooked. It was, the different opportunities. That's a cool thing about the state, is there's so many different facets you can work in. So I kind of got stuck in that, graduated college and decided to stay. And that's been the way it was. It was great as a single guy, doing my thing, but then eventually met my wife and had a daughter shortly after. And I'm kind of same boat as Mike, man. Things started setting in for me where I thought, hey, how can I start maximizing my time with my family? And because, for us in the summertime, time is a scarcity for sure. So 16 years I've been doing it. This is my 17th, going into my 17th year. And like I said, fire captain, run a station. Probably Mike can attest. It's a second family. It's a lot different than most people's W-2s. You have your home family and a work family, and it's great. So my first rental property, like you said earlier, I had purchased one and recently sold it this summer, and looking to scale up. So try to get into some smaller multifamilies. But for me, and I think we've talked before in the mastermind, California is a really hard market to cash flow. That was one of the reasons I got rid of the property I had. So I'm having to look out of state now in different markets. So.
Yeah, I failed to mention how we all kind of circled up. So, Mike, you're a member of Real Estate Investing for the W-2 Employee Facebook group, and then Ryan is as well. But Ryan's also a member of our W-2 Capitalist Mastermind group, and I won't bore y'all with the details about that. But not that those details are boring. That sounded weird.
No.
But we're here to talk about firemen and investing. So I didn't want to get all salesy. So one of the things, we were talking about earlier before we hit the record button is how a fireman's schedule is different than in a regular W-2, right? So usually it's 24 on, 48 off. In Ryan, your case, it's, what was it? 72 on?
72, yeah.
On and 96 off.
1 month on, 2 months off.
Yeah. So, it's amazing to hear how you guys, and we talked a little bit about this too. So most firemen have a second job, something on the side. They've got to fill up that time, that's 48 or 96 hours if they're all. So what do you guys do now? Mike, I'll throw this question to you first. What do you do now? Because I kind of know what Ryan does just because he was in the mastermind group. But what do you do on those 48 hours off that leads you, for your investing that helps you further your investing portfolio?
Sure. Well, the goal is always income producing activities.
Right.
Doesn't always happen.
Right.
So what I do now is kind of different than what I did when I first got started. Like I said, currently now I have a business partner, Bill, that I met from Bigger Pockets, and him and I run a company. It's called mdwbhomebuyer.com, and that's where we focus on buying rentals, picking up wholesales, flips, etc. So on my days off, my responsibility within the company is to pretty much manage the projects. So if we're managing a flip or we're turning over a unit or whatever the case may be, I kind of oversee the contractor, the scope, the budget, the materials, etc. With that being said, it's a small business, so we all kind of can pick up and share each other's responsibilities. So Bill, and then my assistant, her name is Tina. She's a godsend. We all kind of share responsibilities. And it could be anything from, like yesterday, we had our Thursday team meeting, because that's my new Kelly day. So our team meetings are on Thursdays to make sure I'm always off.
Your new Kelly day?
Yeah, it's like in the fire service, like it's just every time my shift falls on a Thursday, I have that day off. Just
I gotcha.
Basically overtime control.
Okay.
So yesterday we had a team meeting, and then, till 9:30 at night, Bill and I were down at our 8-unit building working on something, and it was snowing like crazy. We had to go to Walmart, buy 2 things, fight that. So that's kind of how my days are spent. This morning was working on a direct mailer, working on a mail list, and then tomorrow at 6 a.m. I'm a lieutenant on an engine company.
Yeah.
So it takes a little bit of prioritizing your activities, because it sounds like we all have families. It's real easy to let that kind of bleed over to the point where if you don't have some set criteria, pretty soon next thing you're on your computer or your phone too much, and yeah, you're working from home, but you're not like present with your family, and that's something I've had to work on. So
yeah,
that's kind of how I spend my days off, quote unquote.
Okay. Yeah, your days off.
Right.
Your days off as
got to go to work to get a break. I mean, kill me. No, I'm just kidding.
Ryan, what about you, man? What are you doing on your 96 hours off?
Well, like you said, you pretty much are up to par with what I got going on, but I've just been spending it really, for me, like I said, just kind of market research right now and digging up some of the better places for me to start moving my money to. But it's the same thing. I'm looking at direct mailers, contacting brokers, reaching out to property managers, just trying to find some, lead sources. I'm fortunate enough. I've got a good buddy that's investing out of the area as well from here. So he's been a real asset for me to lean on and kind of a place to build a little confidence. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of the same as Mike outside of not actually having the workload, as I'm kind of having to create it myself and to make those things happen. But it's definitely a balance between, like Mike said, sometimes I go to work just to take a break.
So with both of you, when you're on shift, and I know somewhat about the firehouse and what happens there. How much time do you all have available, or can you contribute to doing some of these activities at the firehouse? And it may differ from department to department. I just know you'll have some downtime, if you're sitting around the firehouse waiting on, you're not checking things, doing safety checks, checking plugs, all that good stuff. If you've got some downtime, how much of that can you use? And again, it may be different from department to department, but Mike, how about you?
Well, first, yes, there's downtime, and there's days where it's hours, and there's days where it's you'd like a break long enough to use the restroom and get something.
Right. Yeah.
But I think the important thing is that's still your W-2 job, right? And you still need to serve the people you work with and do your job there. So even if you do have the downtime, I don't think it's a wise decision, regardless of your line of work, to sit there and build your real estate business on your employer's dime. That can get a little touchy probably for the employer.
Yeah.
So that's why I have the assistant, honestly, because once my business basically segued to what it's going towards, I realized I couldn't do everything or do what I needed to do. And, you know, cause if you get a text message or a phone call, maybe a quick email, no big deal, but
Right.
you can't be sitting there stuffing envelopes and, you know,
Yeah.
dialing for dollars or whatever, you know, while you're at work. That's not smart.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, you can obviously shoot an email, a text, whatever to, you know, Bill or my assistant, whatever. But I try and be pretty cognizant of, hey, when I'm at work, I'm at work. And when I'm off the county's clock, you know, that's Mike's time to do real estate. And I try not to meld the two.
Yeah. You know, the stigma or the stereotype is, well, if you're not fighting a fire, then you're sitting around the firehouse just.
That's all we do, play cards
just
and smoke cigars.
Eating whatever, you know, eating whatever the rookie cooked for lunch and then just playing cards. So, yeah.
Yep, that's actually it. Watching soap operas.
Yeah.
No.
What's your favorite soap opera?
There's so much to do. And yeah, the fire call volume is maybe different than it was back in the day, so to speak, but there's plenty to do. And I'm sure Ryan's a captain, so he's a notch above me in administrative help. You run one call, you know, you have the report, whether it's to shut off a fire alarm system or an actual house fire, you still have to do a report. So there's administrative tasks. There's always some sort of ongoing training. There's just the regular tasks that need done to manage a firehouse. So you may not be actively responding to emergencies, but there's always stuff to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So the other thing, you know, talking about prioritizing your activities when you're not at the firehouse, how do you guys go about doing that? Ryan, I'll start with you. How do you go about prioritizing your activities? I think it's great that you have a buddy who's helping you along, which, by the way, how did you find that buddy?
What's crazy is I grew up with him, and he chose that path of real estate. We graduated high school, and he literally set foot and went after it. And he's got I think 360 units throughout, like, you know, most of the western half of the states. So I just, you know, finally when I decided to get serious, I hit him up, and we try to get together once a week and have lunch and talk about, you know, strategy and things that are, you know, I'm thinking about. He helps correct me a little bit on some stuff when I get over eager.
Yeah.
But you know, I think with two kids, and you guys can probably attest, is that, you know, the challenge is carving out on your days off, carving that time out. So I try to get up early in the morning, as much as I hate it, but I try to beat everybody up so I can get some stuff done and then get organized. Yeah.
For me, if I don't get up at before 5 during the week, I don't get anything done. I mean, it's just, this is the way I've figured it out. So you've got to have those blocks of time. But you were talking about having a buddy, you know, and reaching out to somebody who you know. And we were talking about this on the W2 Capitalist Mastermind Facebook group this morning about one of the members posted a question about, I'm having trouble explaining my vision to my network, right? To the people around me, because they don't have the right mindset. And the answer to that, her question is, what do I do? My answer to that question is pretty simple: is you stop hanging around those people. You know, and you don't go tell them, hey, buzz off. You know, there's ways of, you know, not answering the phone call as much, or not initiating to go have drinks with them, because they're not going to be the same. So, you know, I think it's extremely important to have those folks in your life, like your buddy, being part of a mastermind group, whether it's mine or another one of like-minded investors. Mike, I know you have, we talked a little bit about some meetup that you've created. So talk about that a little bit and how that's helped not only you, but the other folks that are coming in from a mindset perspective.
Sure. I think that's mindset as a whole is just, I feel like that's something you constantly have to sharpen, if you will, because by no means do I consider myself an expert or seasoned even, but I've been doing it a couple of years. I've been doing this a couple of years at this point, you know, and it's like, I still feel like that sometimes. You still have maybe a little bit of doubt, you know, but, you know, you just have to remind yourself, like, hey, I believe in this and I know this is right, and it's worth the risk. So but sometimes you still have to remind yourself of that. So mindset, I don't think, is one of those things you ever cross the finish line. That's something you're always working on.
Yeah. And you definitely need to challenge yourself always.
Yeah.
Right. And the thing is, if you find yourself in one of those doubtful situations and you lean on, yeah. And you lean on somebody who doesn't share that same passion or mindset with you, they're just going to drag you down even more. Right. But if you're around those people who share it with you and hey, I'm in a slump, I'm not really understanding this.
Yeah.
They're going to lift you up. They're going to put you back on course. So having those folks, having that support group around you is vitally important, in my opinion.
Yeah. They say that old adage, you're the sum of the 5 people you associate with the most. And like Ryan said earlier, your second family is pretty much the guys at the firehouse or ladies at the firehouse too. So if you're with a bunch of people that want to just complain about everything, chances are you're going to assimilate to your environment and do the same.
Yep.
So, yes, we started a meetup, and that was, I guess you could say, self-serving to some degree, but we don't charge for it. It's free. We don't sell you boot camps or anything of the sort. It's legitimately free. If you want to come there and just throw wadded up newspaper at us, you can. If you want to come there and just take notes, and you can. It's like there's nothing in it. But for us, it was the self-serving part was to build a network, and to build a network that would ultimately help our business, and we could help their business, and it's worked out great. But some of the best discussions are before or after the meeting in the bar. Just sitting there talking to people that are like-minded. And when I leave there, man, I'm always just super juiced up. Like, even though it's maybe nothing new or nothing like earth-shattering, but you get around those people that share the same vision, that aren't willing to take no for an answer and want something more out of life besides punching a clock, getting a 6-pack on Friday and dying. And like, that's nothing wrong with that. It's just like, that's just not what I want.
Right.
So it's cool to get around those people, and creating that environment locally was a way that we could do it without waiting for, a quarterly mastermind meeting.
Yeah. I gotcha. Ron, you got anything to add to that?
What's crazy is, I think, and Mike can probably attest too, is the fire service tends to draw a lot of type A, maybe a little type A, B mix.
A lot of alpha males walk
So,
around.
and it's funny because when you start talking about investing at work, there's a lot of limiting beliefs these guys have, and as far as, what I'm getting at is, what I find funny is, I don't really see a job any better suited for real estate investing than a guy that's a fireman. Just because there's so many tools, almost for every limiting belief a guy has, I can point to something he's already doing, proving himself wrong, opposite.
Right.
And it's like, these guys you have the ample time off. There's no better schedule, really, in my opinion, in the W-2 workforce than a fireman. They're natural problem solvers. Most of us are handymen at some level.
Right.
If you're any kind of a station manager, the paperwork, budgeting, it's like there's so much stuff that starts stacking up, working good under pressure. I just look at like going, man, it's, these guys will have every excuse in the world. And granted, I don't have 100 units, but that's something that was obvious to me really early. And it's just wild. I more guys, if you're out there and you're listening and you're a fireman, just step back and challenge those beliefs. And, I bet you're wrong on all of them. 100%.
Well, yeah. And the other thing too, and I wonder, I guess this is just a question for Mike and maybe his group, but, well, no, this is really a question for both of you. So as men, we are more traditionally stubborn than women, right? So I wonder if the women firefighters are more open to investing than the men for the reasons that you just mentioned, because I don't know, just an interesting question. Maybe not worth anything, but
sometimes the ladies can be worse than the guys.
Oh, really?
But as far as stubborn goes, I think my wife's not in the fire service. She takes the cake on that one.
Yeah. Look, don't say anything that's going to get you in trouble. Okay.
Yeah, right. Just kidding.
So getting into kind of what happens around the firehouse a little bit.
Sure.
So we talked about Mike, some of the guys giving you a hard time, maybe giving you some nicknames that you don't really appreciate, or it's just funny because it's firehouse chatter, right? So what are some of the things that you've been able to do to either quiet that noise or convince those guys, hey, I really know what I'm doing, and you should probably look at this too. What are some of those things that you've figured out to kind of resonate with them, that if any fireman listening to this, man or woman, would can grab onto and get us a little further?
So yeah, there's few circles I think that are probably as abrasive as a group of firemen. But when I first started, I kind of kept it pretty close to the vest, and didn't really say much about it. I guess maybe it was just because, what if this doesn't work out? You don't want too many people to know you screwed up. Or I wasn't actively thinking that. Maybe in my subconscious I was, but I just kind of kept it close to me. But then eventually, people hear this or hear that, and pretty soon, they're, joking with you, or everybody wants to know if you just flip them houses, because that's every show they see. And, for lack of a better, I'm just like, yep, sure.
Yeah.
But, I would sit there and I'd have these conversations with people, and after some of the joking would subside, some of them showed a little bit of interest, like, well, what do you do? And, then the interest starts to peak. And
what do you think it is that caused them to finally break through that barrier of not making fun of you now, or not picking at you, but now saying, okay, what do you think that was?
I wish I knew. I don't know. And like I said about the mindset, for me, even, I was on a phone call with a guy last year, and he said something, and I don't remember anything about the hour-long conversation other than the one thing he said is, you keep identifying yourself as a fireman, not a real estate investor. He said, you need to identify as a real estate investor first, and then a fireman second. And that's hard because, like I said, this isn't just a job for most of us. Like, this is literally a calling, whatever you want to call it. This like literally shapes who you are, what you do on your days off, who you hang out with, the way you dress, speak. It's like a gang almost. But
it is a very tight brotherhood.
It is, and that term gets tossed around a lot. But the point is, like, I always kind of viewed myself as just a fireman, and I think that's how my coworkers view themselves. The real estate investing, that's for rich guys from New York City. You can't do that. Like you said, a limiting belief, and like you said, these guys have the skill set. Most of them can build a space shuttle out of a pack of bubble gum and a toothpick. And like, they know about building construction. They know about all this stuff. It's just, for whatever reason, they don't think, hey man, I'm just a fireman. I can't do that. And now I joke and just say that, like, in some of my blog posts, I'm like, hey man, I'm not an expert. I'm just a fireman, kind of is just like a poke back at it. But I don't know what the shift is or why people show interest. Maybe they're just, trying to be nice, but that was kind of the genesis of this blog, or, sharing my story, so to speak, was because people would just keep asking me this. And not that I mind telling the story at all, but I just wanted to, like, show these guys, and anybody in public safety, like, on a civil servant salary, whether you're a fireman or a police officer, or I don't care if you're the guy that runs the street sweeper, like, you're capable of doing this even if you don't make $600,000 a year. Like, you can do this with stacking a little overtime, getting a little knowledge, and taking some action. You just have to make that shift in your head that you're able to do that.
And Ryan, I love the way you put it earlier, is that when you think about it, most firemen have the skill set to do exactly real estate investing. They, most of us are handy, which I saw Mike shake his head when you said that.
Just for the record, I don't do any of my own work, because I got to do it.
Hey, I had a property manager for one rental. So
yeah. Hey, no, you're smart. You're smart. Yeah. So, but I think, the way that you laid that out, I think is hopefully it connects with some guys that say, look, and you have those skills right now. The only thing that you do have also is that limiting belief, it's amazing to me. It not only just firemen, but for other folks who think, and I'm sure I was the same way. Right now, if that was the case, I've packed that memory way down deep, and I've forgotten all about it by now. But it's just getting that first deal done is to me, one of the most important things an investor can do. Now, you don't want to rush out there and buy the first thing that pops up on the market and lose a bunch of money on, or lose any money on. That's not what I'm saying. The point is, don't fall into analysis paralysis, which is a phrase a lot of folks, use. And quite frankly, a lot of people that I see now are using that as an excuse. Well, I've got analysis paralysis. No, you're just being lazy and not taking action. So think about that first deal. And I know, Ryan, it's easier for you to think about your first deal and kind of how you got past not doing anything to your first deal. Let's talk about that for a minute. And then Mike, we'll come over to you too, if you can remember that far back. So Ryan, so talk about your first deal. What did it look like? I think as your first deal, you're supposed to go out and buy a 200 unit apartment complex. Isn't that the rule?
Yeah,
supposed to do?
for sure.
Okay.
Hey, I wish. No, so you're talking about my first one, the house I own?
Yeah.
The rental?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So actually that was kind of out of necessity. It was an ugly ride. It's nothing to write home about. I purchased that house back in 2004. So just before everything started peaking, and I was still going to school. It was kind of a way I thought, hey, when this thing appreciates, I'll pay off my $8,000 in student loan, whatever. And I watched houses around me, same floor plans. They were selling for 60, 70,000 more than I purchased for, and probably should have sold. But I said, no, man, I'm gonna hang on to this thing. This is great. So I rode that market out. It obviously went high. It went really low, and I lived there for the first 3 years that I owned it. Fixed it up. It was an older home. I bought it off the original owners, and I decided I was done living there. So instead of selling for a loss or short selling or any of that stuff, I just said, you know what, I'm going to rent it. My payments were good. I could clear a profit every month on it with paying property management. So that's what I went for. And it was actually a nice little rental. Just the lady that had lived there for, I want to say she was in there for 6 years or so, decided she had hit me up about purchasing it, and the offer was right. And I was ready to move on from that house.
Oh, that's awesome.
I went there, and I forgot. I failed to mention I did a guy from work, another one of a buddy I worked with. We actually flipped a house in the middle of that whole thing. So, and that worked out pretty well for us too. Unlike Mike, I didn't really fall in love with the flipping process. That quick turnaround and the time crunch.
Just to be clear, I don't love it.
So yeah,
just be clear, I don't love it. So
yeah, no, it's true. So yeah, I mean, and that was the thing. But I've always had that itch. I've loved real estate, and like I said, talking to my buddy growing up, and he said, man, you need to get in the game and start looking at some buy and holds. So here we are back in it. So.
Yeah, and the gentleman I interviewed earlier today gave the analogy of a flywheel, and how that flywheel is going to take a little bit of momentum to get going, and then once you get that thing spinning, it doesn't take a whole lot of effort to spin it again. I thought it was a great analogy to how you can grow your portfolio. So, and
I think real quick too, Jay, like for me, what owning that first property, what killed a lot of the fear, I think that smokes most people, is I realized over that 10, 11 year stretch was that, things popped up and repairs and maintenance popped up. And I mean, I had an in-ground pool in there, and it was a vinyl liner of all things. So, I got hit with expenses like that. But the thing is that you can overcome everything. It's not like the thing's going to sink into a hole, which might've been better for insurance purposes. I don't know, but
no.
But like you talk to everybody and they just think everything's going to go wrong at once and you're going to lose all this money. And just going through that process and kind of getting my feet wet and really learning, like, hey man, this isn't, even if this goes bad, I'm having the W-2 job, man, is like, it's a godsend, because I go, hey, even if this thing goes totally messy on me, I've got something to help nurse it along. So,
well, and the idea is not for it to nurse along, right? You analyze those properties. We talked a little bit earlier, I think before we hit the record button, about investing criteria, making sure that, when you look at a property, they hit all your investing criteria. And I'm thrown off by my hair right now because I don't know what in the heck's going on, but we're going to have to deal with it. So the other thing is, when you talk about those expenses that come up, one of the things that I preach and I live by is every month when that rent check comes in, you're taking a portion of that rent. Usually it's around 20, for me, it's around 20, 25%. And it's going into a sacred account that I don't touch, right, until those expenses come up. For example, last year, we replaced 2 air conditioners. in a couple of our units. Total price was about $7,000, and that money came out of those reserved accounts. So not having that, I would have probably put that on a credit card or, tried to figure out where that came up. But we had that money sitting aside for when that vinyl liner cracks and it needs to be replaced, or the HVAC goes out or whatnot. So there's all these different things. So, and as long as you plan properly, you'll not, and you buy it properly, it should make you money. Right. And the other limiting belief I hear is people saying, well, I don't want to answer the phone at 2 a.m. to hear a toilet's clogged. I've never had that happen before. And the reason I haven't heard that happen before is because I have a property manager for every property we have. I spend maybe an hour a week talking to my property managers about something that's going on. Sometimes it goes weeks without me even talking to them because it's hands off. We've got a very good understanding of if something comes up. I don't need to approve $150 plumbing expense. Just if there's water leaking and you need to do something, just do it. I don't need to do that. So, just having those property managers is key, especially when you have a W-2 like you guys. If you're, I'm assuming you don't self-manage, Mike, but it maybe somebody on your team does. But, for those guys who don't have a team and they're at the firehouse for the next 72 hours, and you get that call that you can't take because you're fighting fires or rescuing somebody, it's really important to have that property management in place. So, Mike, what do you guys do for property management?
You could say it's a hybrid model. I self-manage a couple. I have a property manager for some of the ones in my portfolio. And then the ones in my joint company, we manage ourselves with our system. So my long-term plan is to transition that over to management, but right now that's pretty much how it gets done.
Yeah, but you have a team in place to where if something does come up, then it is a quick phone call to whatever tradesman you need to go over.
Back to building that network. It's you find yourself a really good HVAC guy, find yourself. The quest for the Holy Grail is find that good handyman. Yeah. That's always something you're always working for. And whenever you find a good one, take care of them. Yeah. And then you just having that good team that you can trust. And like you said, if it's $150, don't call me. Like, as Ryan can vouch, like we're in a very SOP or standard operating procedure guideline type business. And one thing we've done is we've just said like, hey, if this happens, this is what you do. If this happens, this is what you do. And it takes a lot of the emotion and guesswork out of it. So my property manager, they can spend like $300 before they have to call me and we have to talk about it. Up until that point, do what needs done.
Yeah. Take care of the tenant, right?
Correct.
Take care of the guy that's paying the bills.
Exactly. 100%.
So, one of the other things I wanted to make sure we talk about today is, and we touched on a little bit earlier about what goes on in the firehouse. And, some of the things that the guys, and even me, I've had friends and family members call me slumlord or jokingly call me the real estate expert, or the real estate mogul or whatnot. So, and I know in the firehouse, you've got to have tough skin, right? So what are some of the things that have happened with your guys? And I know both of you are in management positions, and I'm calling management rank positions. Right. So maybe some of that doesn't come up your way, but what are some of the things you hear in the background or hear in the chatter about your respective side hustles?
I mean, of course, like I said, some of the guys affectionately joke, call me slumlord. They've never seen my properties. And one of the things I always like to throw out there is one of the criteria I have is I have to be able to drive by one of our properties, say with Jay in the car, and be like, yeah, I own that one, and not be like, like hide my face. So I feel like yes, are there bad landlords out there? 110%. We respond to their residents on a daily basis. But there's also good people out there that provide affordable, quality, safe homes to people that work hard. at their W-2 job or whatever the case may be. And that's the type of landlord I want to be. So,
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, if it's something you believe in, you're willing to take that risk. It's something I believe in. So at first it used to bug me. Now it doesn't bug me at all.
Yeah.
So that doesn't stop the ribbing by any
No.
means. But
Well, it won't, right? It doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know, and that's fine. So I have thick skin. I've been in the department long enough that I'm used to it. So it's just one of those things. Like I just joke about it and laugh along with them, and I'm like, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
But, I don't know what to tell you, man. Like that's your choice. Like, and that doesn't make it wrong. It just means we have different paths, and I'm looking to do something maybe different in a different way than somebody else.
Yeah. Because you mentioned earlier in 20 years, you'll be able to not in 20 years total service, you'll be able to retire, which will leave you at, I think you said in your mid 40s.
Right.
And then what are you going to do? Right.
Yeah.
And so and I'll give you this. So when my dad retired, he was, I think in his 60s, early 60s. And he'll tell you to this day, it was the worst decision he ever made because he missed the brotherhood. He missed, being around the guys. It was just, he has, in his opinion, the best job in the world. Yeah, exactly. So he struggled with that a couple months or a couple years out of retirement. But
sure. I don't know if there is a answer for that other than, it's just different. It's gonna be different. And that seems like so far away. But I think about my son's getting ready to turn 7. And I remember when I started this adventure, he was still in my wife's belly. So it's like, time goes a little bit faster than we think sometimes. So that's 9 years away, 8 years, whatever. So it seems like it's really far off, but it's really not. And planning for that now is important. So I don't know what the next 9 years holds. I don't know what that's going to look like, but I would at least I'd like to have options. And if I don't know how your father retired, but I want to retire healthy. I don't want to get cancer. I don't want to be injured. If I can hit that 20-year mark and I can retire healthy and I can retire and go do something else, I don't plan on just hanging everything up and driving around in a Buick. My plan is to retire. Sorry for all the people driving Buicks out there.
Yeah. No offense to Buick drivers.
Yeah.
Right. I think you gave us some insight on what you want to really do, and that's own a Liberty Tax store so you can be out on the roadside.
Yeah, flipping that sign dressed up.
That's what it is. That's what you want to do. Yeah.
Hey, never know. That's kind of how it works in the firehouse.
Yeah. So, is there any reason why anybody in any rank of the firehouse couldn't start investing in real estate?
No, that's what's so cool about real estate. Like you could find where you fit in, find what your skill set is. And maybe you are really handy. Maybe you're a plumber by trade or an electrician or everybody's got a landscape company in the fire service. Maybe you could start taking care of properties and learn the business that way. And then transition into buying one or getting a partner or whatever, be a realtor, loan money. I know a guy in our department, not with me, but he loans money to an investor and he just gets a 12% return every quarter. And so in essence, he's investing in real estate, but he's not he's not in the fray, if you will, with it. So there's no reason. And again, that was the whole reason for the blog, was just like, hey, this is possible. Whether you're a rookie, a battalion chief, or whatever, it doesn't matter. You can find a way to do it. It just has to become a priority for you.
Yeah. Ryan, I see you shaking your head. Yes, you agreed.
Totally, 100%. I have kids. We have a seasonal workforce, and I had a 18-year-old kid this year, and he made a good chunk of money, most money he's ever made, obviously. And he said, "Man, I think I'm gonna buy my first house." And haven't been down that road myself. I said, "Hey, you know what?" And I started turning him on. I just said, "Check out this podcast." He had about an hour commute to work. I said, "Start listening to Bigger Pockets and some of these other resources." And I said, I think you'd be better served putting that money. And then we just, at meals and stuff, we talk about real estate and the possibility of investing, and how I told them, I said, "Hey, if I was in your shoes, or I could go back when I was 19, 20 years old, starting this career, things would have been a lot different, I think, for myself.
Yeah. If we only knew what we know now, then
Yeah,
we'd all be
exactly. Right.
probably all wouldn't be on this call right now. Right. So,
Exactly.
well, guys, I appreciate your time today. I don't know, appreciate your service that you're providing to your communities. I think it's awesome. Mike, what you're doing with the blog, the Investing Fireman, I want to encourage every fireman out there to go out and subscribe to it. And I'll put a link on the, when we publish this, wherever we're going to publish it. I think it's going to be at YouTube and the Facebook group. But other than that, is there a better way for people to contact you if they got direct questions?
Like you said, the Investing Fireman, it's on Instagram, Facebook, or the website. That's the best way to get a hold of me. And feel free to shoot me a message. I'd be happy to chat.
Okay. Ryan, what about you, bud?
Follow Mike. If you are a fireman, follow Mike. I do. I have been. If you want to get a hold of me for some reason, just it's at rkinyon, Kinyon, on Instagram. It's the best way to hit me up. Slide into my DMs.
Yeah. I forgot about that. You before this call, or before we recorded, you said that you had started following Mike a couple of months ago when he started publishing that blog. So that's awesome. That's
pretty cool.
Yep.
So, well, guys, thank you again for your time. I appreciate it, and I will talk with both of you very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.